But no,
Goodness.
what I was going to say, back to the Trump issue, because Trump was expected to win Iowa. He did not win Iowa. Trump is expected to absolutely destroy New Hampshire. Nobody is within even 20 points of him right now. He is at 33. Cruz is at 11.7. 21.3 point
Right.
difference. 21.3 points is the closest anybody is to him.
Well,
What
look at
happens?
your for a second here. If you look at this, okay, look at the candidates, even on the Democratic side. You have Bernie Sanders. He is 55%. He's about 20% over Hillary, projected to take New Hampshire.
Right.
Why? Why is that? Because Sanders is from the Northeast. Trump from the Northeast. He's one of them.
Well,
You see what I mean?
technically, Cruz is a Canadian, so he kind of
Right.
fits that mold.
Oh goodness! But at the same time, if you look at South Carolina, you see Clinton taking Sanders out that way. So
Right.
why is that?
What I was going to get to with that was that you see Trump has this monstrous lead in New Hampshire.
Right.
What if Cruz pulls Bernie in Iowa? What if Cruz doesn't win, or hell, if Cruz does win, or hell, if Rubio wins, because they're pretty close, but somebody is able to basically tie Trump? Does that spell the end of Trump's campaign?
Oi. Yes and no. Okay. We've already talked about this. Trump's not getting the nomination. It's no way. There's no way he's getting the nomination. There's no way that there is enough push in the primaries that's going to give him the momentum to get that nomination. The establishment is already rallying behind Marco Rubio. When you said that Rubio's the guy for the GOP, I believe that. Okay? Because he's closer to the establishment than Cruz is and Trump. Trump's already pissed everybody off.
Yeah.
Trump's burned every bridge. Even if he wins New Hampshire, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And at this point, Bush and Carson need to just save face and drop.
Oh yeah, I imagine them announcing within, if not before New Hampshire, right after New Hampshire, because they're not going to win it. It's just not going to happen. Okay, and then of course, based off of New Hampshire, if Sanders takes New Hampshire, he's in serious consideration to get that nomination.
Yeah, it's not that a win, even a sizable win in New Hampshire, still does not guarantee him the nomination. Hillary performing a Bernie in Iowa in New Hampshire ensures that Bernie's done. I mean, if she has a strong performance, she can take out Bernie in one fell swoop. It really comes down to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Um,
See, that's the thing. I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because, again, Iowa was basically came down to a coin toss. That's how close it was. New Hampshire, on the other hand, again, this is Sanders' territory. He is from that area of the country. Geographically, he has more to relate with them. He embodies New England values. Okay,
right, but if
that's
she
Bernie
ties
Sanders.
him,
Yeah, I don't see it.
I
I'm
don't
calling
see
it
her
right
doing
now. I
it.
think he's.
I don't
Yeah.
see her doing it either. But if she does, um, it kind of goes. He's already behind, so he really showed that he's a force to be reckoned with because he was able to tie her in Iowa. Now, if she comes back in New Hampshire in his stomping grounds and is able to pull the same kind of performance that he did on her in Iowa, he's not going to win South Carolina. He's still 30 points behind in South Carolina. I think that's the beginning of the end for him if he can't pull out a not just a win in New Hampshire, but a dominant win in New Hampshire.
I think, yeah, and the thing about it is, again, I think that the momentum coming out of Iowa, okay, he's big news right now because of the how he performed in Iowa,
Right.
which again, a Midwest caucus for a New England candidate, an old grumpy Jew in Canada, in the Midwest, in Iowa. It just doesn't work. Okay? But he did so well there. So now he's in his home turf.
Yeah.
I don't see him not performing well.
And he also has the advantage that Iowa was months and months of preparation to win this. Iowa just finished. New Hampshire is on the 9th. So a week from now, 6 days. Yeah, 6
He's
days
going to be
from now.
riding that buzz. He's going to be riding that Iowa buzz.
Right. He's still going to be riding that. And moreover, Hillary doesn't have time to really dig into that, to cut into it. There's not enough days left for her to make a sizable dent into it. I'm just saying, hypothetically, just in case you did to go over that. But I guess what it boils down to, what New Hampshire boils down to, is both Trump and Sanders have to win. And like I said, not only do they have to win pretty sizably. Otherwise, we could be looking at, other front runners moving into South Carolina.
It's a pivotal moment. And some people have been asking me, Scott, I don't know if you've been getting this question, but why does Iowa matter? Have you been gotten that question? Have you been had that question thrown at you?
I've seen it posed in two ways. One, Iowa matters because, the history behind it. And then the other version of that is that Iowa doesn't matter. Iowa is worthless and that we should just throw it out. But I didn't really look too far into either side of that. So tell me, Jimmy, why does Iowa matter?
Well, there's two schools of thought here. The first is because Iowa is the first of the primary season, as far as the actual elections, as far as the caucuses and so forth. That it up until this point, it's just speculation. It's just polls. Okay, it's just this person looks like they'll do well. Now we're getting results. Iowa's the first step in those results, and so a lot of people then base. Okay, they did really well in Iowa. They could do really well in the actual election, like the rest of the primaries and caucuses around the nation.
Right.
The part about it that makes it ineffectual. Look at the historical candidates that have won the Iowa caucus. Okay, Mike Huckabee won Iowa caucus. Was he the nomination ever? No. What's his name? Rick Santorum won Iowa. Wasn't the nomination. It's not a sound decision. It's not a sound indicator of who's going to get the nomination, who's going to be, in the general election. Okay, so these are the Democratic side.
Yeah, and the Republicans. Going back to 1972 when this started. So
it seems somewhat accurate on the Democratic side, but again, Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee in 2008.
Well, even the Republican side is somewhat accurate. I mean, 1980, George H.W. Bush won over Ronald Reagan, who eventually got the nomination. And then in 88, George Bush got third under Bob Dole, but George Bush goes on to get the nomination. Bob Dole pops up as the name that never. He was never president or vice president. I don't think he ever won anything.
He was running with Kemp. I remember that. Kemp Thorne, I think is what it was. Dole, Kemp, Thorne. But the thing about it is, okay, if you go back to that chart real quick, the Democratic nominations.
Oh, he challenged Clinton in 96 on Clinton's.
In 96 with Kemp as his running name. I think it was Kemp. But if you look at this, okay, starting from 2008, 2004, obviously, George Bush was the incumbent. He was unopposed. That's what that means. Okay, Huckabee, 34%. In 2008. John McCain, who ended up getting a nomination, only 13% of that. You see the difference here? Now look at 2012. Rick Santorum took it, even though it says 25, 25, and 25 here. Rick Santorum was reported to have taken 2012. Mitt Romney ends up getting the nomination. That's a little bit closer. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump? I don't know. I go getting the nomination, but you see, it's not.
But the
100%.
argument against the Iowa caucus that I read was that it's not accurate. But from what I'm seeing statistically, 1, 2.
Oh, there he is,
3,
Jack Kemp.
4, 5, 6,
not
7,
Kemp Thorne, Jack
8,
Kemp.
8 out of 11 times on the Democrat side, it was right. And on the Republican side, it's 6-5 on the Republicans. But the people that went on to get the nomination went on to win the presidency on the Republican side when they lost. Which, if you count that in, it's actually... Anyway, so for Republicans, it's not entirely accurate. It's 6-5 over its history. Democrats is actually a really good indicator, which puts us in a bind right now because it's never been as close as Hillary and Bernie, 49.8 and 49.6.
Right. I mean, and even look at if you look at the Democratic side, Obama 38% in Iowa in 2008 to Hillary's 29%. It was fairly close, okay, but still there's a sizable difference there. 2016, only a fraction of a difference. Look at how much O'Malley got.
Look at 1992.
God, 1992. Tom Harkin,
76%. Uncommitted, 12%. Paul Tsongas, 4%. Bill Clinton, who goes on to become president, 3%.
Now, is there a way that we can pull up on another tab the New Hampshire primary? Because that would be that right there. If we can see, based off of that, we might be able to see a reason why the shift. So it's 92, right? 92 was the one that we were looking at. Paul Tsongas took the New Hampshire. Paul Tsongas over here in 1992 only did 4%. Tom Harkin only got 10% in New Hampshire. So he dropped off. He wasn't able to relate with the New Hampshire crowd. Bill Clinton, on the other hand, took 24. He rose. So he went from 3% up to 24% from Iowa to New Hampshire. It's geographics. That's all it is. He's geographically more relatable.
So then what you're saying is that the purpose of the caucuses and the primaries is we're talking Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Are there any more?
No. Those are Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina.
All right. The purpose, you're looking at a Midwest state, a Northeast state, and a Southeast state. 3 geographically polar opposite from one another. I know that's not possible because it really makes a full circle when you talk about 3 like that. But you know what I'm saying. They are all completely different areas, and they're seeing how each candidate appeals to each demographic for the party to then make a choice. Is that the purpose of these? So it's not just that the Iowa Caucus is a big deal. It's all 3 are a big deal put together.
I don't think that's why. I don't think that's the purpose per se, but I think that is the importance of them, because it does give you that consensus of where the country, how the country is feeling about these particular candidates. Again, Tom Harkin, 1992, he dropped substantially. I would be curious to see where Tom Harkin is even from, because he did really well. He did really well in 1992, 76%.
Senator from Iowa.
He's a senator from Iowa. There we go. So he related with Iowans because he is one of them. Bill Clinton, not so relatable to Iowans. That's the thing. It's geographics. Are they relatable? And so if you see them in the Midwest, you see them in the Northeast, you see them in the South. Can they run that gamut and do really well? So I don't think that Michael Dukakis was actually a pretty decent candidate. He just he got really hit on the image game. There's an image of Michael Dukakis with a gigantic Kevlar on helmet in a tank, and he looked like a child. Kind of hurt him. But
maybe that picture's in here. It is.
Yeah, look at this. Look how ridiculous he looks. He looks ridiculous, right? Bushy eyebrows, tiny head. What I was getting at is you're saying that New Hampshire, if Bernie doesn't do well in New Hampshire, that his campaign's over. I can agree with that. But if Hillary is, yeah, I think you get what I'm saying. It's all about geographics. One isn't necessarily an indicator that you're going to get the nomination. I think they all have to.
Well, no, what I'm saying that because how far behind Bernie is in South Carolina. Like I said,
Right.
so if they do a caucus and a primary, Iowa and New Hampshire, where they're relatively close, dead heat in Iowa, and even conceivably close in New Hampshire, Clinton's going to take South Carolina easily. So at that point, I don't think there's anything left for Bernie to grab onto. I think he's done there. That's
Right.
why, in order for him, I don't know, it's still going to be an even match because you have the dead heat in Iowa. He takes New Hampshire, she takes South Carolina. So that's how they stay dead even, because he's going to dominate New Hampshire, she's going to dominate South Carolina. If either one of those switch, where she makes a run in New Hampshire or Sanders substantially cuts into the lead in South Carolina, I think he gets the nomination. But obviously, I'm not the person that makes that decision.
I think you're right. I think that the way that it's going, Sanders, again, I don't see Sanders doing poorly in New Hampshire. But again, surprises happen. If he does do bad, he does do poorly, he's not going to do well in South Carolina. Clinton, on the other hand, if she doesn't do well in South Carolina, either way, it's not going to look good for that candidate.
If you like what you see, be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and our page polypompous.com.